today we'll be speaking with an extremely well-regarded sales manager. She was introduced to us as someone who goes out of her way to coach and help people find their opportunities. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about some of the turns and twists that she's had in her journey, how she's overcome rejection and found her rhythm as a director of sales. This is going to be a fun journey. Join us shortly.
Welcome to Seller's Journey, the podcast where we speak to great sales reps and leaders and share their real stories from start to sales success.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph Fung, and today we're speaking with Ilana Shulman, Director of Sales at THP. How are you doing, Ilana?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing really well. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, you're welcome.
So you were introduced to us because of the opportunities that you've been able to open for your employees, your team members, the people that you coach and mentor. And I love speaking to people who aren't just successes in their own right, but give people their opportunities to succeed. So I'd like to start off just by thanking you for being a really good example for how to coach and mentor, because that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So to start off and help people get to know you, can you share a little bit? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Montreal and I was raised in Ottawa. So most of my life has been in Ottawa. When I graduated from high school, I actually went to college first in Peterborough. Coming back, I decided to continue and I went to Carleton in Ottawa. So that's more or less where I grew up and went to school.
Now, as we spoke about your journey, one of the things that jumped out was that you decided not to continue the time at Carleton and you jumped into work right away. Can you help us understand, what sparked that decision and where did you end up?
Yeah, for sure. So after college, I came back and I wanted, to Ottawa and I wanted to get some work as covering bills and stuff was definitely my priority and my responsibility. So when I was finished in university, I came back to Ottawa. I decided to go to Carleton, but I was also working part-time at a gym. And I was enjoying it. I could talk more about how that gym definitely became my first intro into my sales career. But I had the opportunity to continue full time with this gym and that sales opportunity. So I decided, I'm like thought in the back of my head I was going to go back, and then just things kind of led to one another, leading me a career at this gym for about 17 years.
Now, at the gym, you were working part-time as an instructor. Is that right?
I first started as a part-time sales rep. And then I became very interested in in different ways of fitness. So I started to get courses and certified to teach classes, become a personal trainer. And then slowly I became into sales at a full-time level. So I was like teaching early mornings, working at the club, doing sales, and then also taking on personal training. So it was very busy for me while I was there.
You got the full mix there, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So thinking about that, very much kind of a consumer-facing sales experience, now that you've got more of a journey under your belt, as you reflect back on that early sales work, what was it like? How would you describe it? What stood out to you most in hindsight?
Well, when I look back, working face to face is very different than being on the phone. I would call it a lot more of an emotional sale, especially when you're working at a fitness industry. You have to realize that people don't just come into the gym because they're just ready to get started. They probably walk by 6 or 7 times, and this is a huge emotional change for them. So I think it was just about understanding that, which has obviously really helped me in my sales career moving forward. But just having that empathy, understanding, trying to do your best to relate to them, and just make them feel comfortable and that you're on their side, and then really just moving the sale forward in a natural way. And the best thing is that if you make them feel like that, they want their friends there. So getting referrals is quite easy when you are successful. But for me, it's really about that short time that you have with somebody, stranger really to get to know them, ask them uncomfortable questions, build a relationship and trust for them to say, yeah, this is a huge life change I want to make.
Now, you speak about it so highly, and you mentioned how much you liked working there. You can hear the enthusiasm in
Mhm.
your voice. What triggered the decision to move to Outrank? I mean, that's more of a business offering. So why the shift?
Well, to be honest, all the things I just said to you, they're something that I find very important, like the relationship, the trust
Hmm.
building. Those I'm so passionate about because those continued with me in my sales career, right? Those things never left. For me to be
Mm.
successful, I felt like I really wanted to hone in on those qualities to be successful. My 17 years at Good Life called for crazy hours. Like I was working from 6 in the morning, teaching classes, working all day. It was actually when I was pregnant, 10 years ago now, that I was
Mm.
like, do I want to go back? Like, do I actually want to go back to that? Or do I see myself moving into an industry where I could be more successful, but have a bit better of a schedule where I could manage family and work? And that's where a friend of mine recommended, you should check out tech sales. Like it's a thing, it's booming. And that was so new to me. So I obviously decided to see what would happen. And I put my resume out there. And that's when I made the huge shift.
So just checking, you're off Good Life for kind of parental leave. Did you go back, or did you go straight into tech sales from there?
I went straight into tech sales. And once I found a
Mm.
balance in my schedule, I decided to go back just to teach classes before, because that was a passion of mine.
Mm.
Exercise is still a passion of mine. So for me to be able to teach a couple of classes a week and then still have my full-time role, that was a good balance.
One of the things that we hear come up so frequently is, how do people still balance their passions with their work? And I love the example you just gave, because I think it speaks to it so highly. Uh, what was that like? We speak to a lot of people who are experiencing a life change. Maybe they've changed countries, their family situation has changed, that they're making a decision to get into tech sales. You've been through it. Uh, what stuck out from you for you from that situation, and what were some of your takeaways from that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was not easy. Like, to be honest with you, I feel like I was a timid person. Was so in tune with the gym lifestyle. Like, I was there for a very long time.
Mm.
Now to like change my beat and start to talk to people who are roofers or psychologists, like these are the verticals I was calling photography.
Wow.
It was very different, and it really came down to amazing leadership. So, I had tough bosses, but they definitely knew how to get me out of my comfort zone. Um, and I think, having amazing coaching and being able to think about this new vertical that I was in and have that direction. I had a lot of failing moments, but what I learned there is, by failing is the only way you're going to get better. Even picking up the phone was one of the scariest things I ever thought I had to do. From going face to face to now being over the phone, you start building some skills that at one point you think, I'm never going to be able to do this. And then all of a sudden, a couple months go by and you're like, oh, that's like the easiest thing I can do. And then you start to realize, as a successful salesperson, you have to figure out what works for you. Like you can have amazing managers that are going to guide you, but something is going to click. And for me, that click was organization. I needed to be in my CRM. I needed to know what my day looked like. Yeah, so for me, it was that. But another thing was, being a mom, I had to leave right on time. I had a schedule I had to go pick up, but I also wanted to prove myself and show that I can do this role. So there were times where, at the end of the day, the end of the evening, when my son was in bed, I would say, I'm going to go back to work for a couple hours because I know I can have luck calling in the West Coast. So
Wow.
sometimes it was really funny because the next day they'd be like, "Oh, congratulations, Ilana, for closing, 2 deals yesterday." And people would look at me like, "You didn't close anything yesterday. You left. You had to go pick up your son." And I was like, "No, no, no. I came back after." Um,
So I need to ask. You spoke about the coaching and the mentorship, and your time at Outrank was punctuated by these very quick advancements, and you're now regarded as an excellent leader and manager. So, what what stuck out to you? What was a key takeaway that you've tried to emulate in your own coaching and mentorship?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things that has ever happened to me was while I was at Outrank, I applied for promotion and
Mm,
I didn't get it. I didn't get it at
mm,
first. And I thought to myself, well, why? Like, why didn't I get it? And I was very lucky to have a VP of sales that was honest with me. And he told me, this is why you didn't get it. And he would list it out about 3 or 4 things. And I remember when the next promotion was available, about maybe 6 months later, I walked into that interview and I was like, here's a list of all the things that you told me that I needed to improve upon. And here's what I did. And here's why I think I deserve that role. And he was very taken back and very impressed that, I worked on that feedback. When I find today, even people that I manage in many different scenarios, they don't take feedback well or they take it more
mm.
personal. So I feel like, if somebody from experience is going to give you feedback on how to improve, you got to just absorb that. You got to work with it. If you don't understand, you have to ask questions.
So I love the idea of taking that feedback, as a to-do list, as a set of action items. Um, I'd like to think a little bit about kind of going forward, some of the feedback or the lessons that you've learned as you've advanced, skipping over, a few roles because you've worked at some incredible tech companies. Uh, you shared a little bit about a situation earlier where you had some feedback that your role was stuck between two different positions. Can you share a little bit about kind of that challenge and what you took away from that scenario?
Yeah, and exactly. Like miscommunication, it's not fun. And to be able to, be very clear on expectations is so crucial to any party involved. So I guess with the role, it was I thought of it as being one way to kind of come in and really work on building out that process and being able to coach that process and rewrite it if necessary and, create that hiring profile and, really just building the steam work like the foundation. And then
Mm,
once we had that foundation, it was like, okay, now I really got to focus on the revenue. And I mean, everything kind of comes in together, but it was really difficult when finding out that the impression I had of the role was going to be a bit different. That it was like
uh,
you got to be a player coach and you got to be on the phones and that's great. But I'm a little bit different where I like to be on the outside looking in to then see where do I need to make changes. And if the team is growing to a point of like 10, 13 people, it's a big ask, right? So
mhm.
I believe, yeah, there are certain points where you could have a team lead to help assist with these types of things, but the communication and expectation of someone's role, it should be clear or and reviewed within some time as well.
I think the really interesting thing, and when we were speaking about your journey earlier, one of the things that stuck out to me is that that situation is such a real and frequent situation that happens at all levels. And I mean, you've encountered it at a director level. And when we think about how true that is, I'd love to hear what are some of the things that you did to kind of recover, find your rhythm, coming out of that kind of a setback.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason, and
Hmm.
to be transparent, being let go, it could go two ways. You can think to yourself, my gosh, right? This is terrible. Like, what am I going to
Hmm.
do? Or you could just pick yourself up and be like, well, I got to really figure out what I'm good at. And I got to figure out my non-negotiables in terms of what I'm looking for in my next role and have a takeaway of what didn't go well, like what led to this. So I really did a lot of searching and it was tough. Like I felt down, I got rejected, probably 50 times. And I really had to sit down and I didn't want to get desperate. I wanted to make sure that my next choice was going to be something that I was passionate about and that it was going to be an ongoing role, right? I mean,
Mhm.
having a role here and a role here for like, a year, it doesn't look good. Even if you're, amazing, you are what you are on paper. So it was really important to me that not only was I going to find a role where I'm able to, work as that director of sale and bring revenue to the bottom line, but also have the ability to coach and train and build amazing relationships with my team. Like that was very important to me. And it kind of can create um, negativity when you're explaining yourself like that because they don't see you always as a director. They're going to see you as someone who's passionate about sales, but you belong in an enablement role, not
Mm.
a director role. But this was just something that I found was unique about me as a director. Like, and I knew I loved the training aspect and the coaching aspect way early in my career. Building those relationships and watching your reps not only grow as a salesperson, but grow into their new and next role. And that was my priority. If it was either in the company we worked at or if it was helping them externally if we didn't have that space. Yeah.
I like how you spoke about when you moved into your first tech role at Outrank, about how you could still carry forward those things you liked, that client engagement, those interactions. And even now, when you're speaking about your latest director role, you're again speaking about carrying over those things that are important to you. I love the phrase you use, my non negotiables. It sounds like keeping those core to yourself isn't just possible but required for success. Am I reading too much into that, or
No,
is that
you're
a fair
right.
comment?
You're right. And you can sit there and you can write out your vision board of what you're looking for with your next role. And those are like, if I was to make a sales word cloud of who I
Hmm.
was, those words would stand out in terms of, coaching and caring and empathy, relationship building, trust, promotion. Yeah, definitely you're on the right path.
Okay, this is great. So we've kind of followed your journey. You've got this setback. You found this new exciting role. Tell us, who is THP? What's the value prop? What's the elevator pitch?
Yeah. Okay. So THP, we're the leading provider of content, social media services. So we really work with brand managers and marketers.
Hmm.
We are 100% an on demand model. So we, by creating high quality content, social media strategies, it's really easy and it's affordable, which is great. So I don't know, but if you need either videos, photos, copyright, social media strategy, community management, that's where you would come to for us. So
Awesome.
that's
That's
our
great.
thing. Yeah.
Again, as well, I should say, congrats on finding the rule that speaks to your non-negotiables into that direction. That's awesome, and I can hear the enthusiasm and excitement in your voice. So I'm really excited for you as well.
Thank you.
Thinking a little bit about your journey, we've talked a lot about where you've come from. I like to think about where you're headed. Uh, Whether you want to think about it as what's on your bucket list or what do you still aspire to do. If we're talking to Ilana Shulman in 10, 20 years, uh, what will you be proud of having accomplished then?
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into this and I do on a regular basis. And, it's not about moving into that next role into the next role. I think it's even how you introduce me as saying like there's people who thank you for their career. I think that's it. Like if in 10 years and 20 years I still have people saying, hey, oh, I know Ilana, she definitely helped me in my career, she helped train me. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have some of her feedback or her coaching. That would just be amazing to me in those 10 years. I guess it's just being able to help other people. Like, this sales is, it could be a scary job entry, but it really doesn't have to be.
I don't think so at all because sorry, I agree. It doesn't have to be scary. And I think your story illustrates that perfectly. Um, I've enjoyed this so much. I've got a couple of rapid fire questions for you before we let you
Sure.
go. You game for it?
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. Okay, you've worked at some of the best tech companies here. I'm super intrigued in your answer to this first one. What has been your favorite sales tool?
Okay, and I have to admit I have two. Okay, I'm sorry. But,
Total cheat answer, but let's go for it.
I know. Well, it depends on where you are, and that's the thing. Like, I'm still really early on in a very small sales team right now. So for
Mhm.
me, working from home, I love that we are going to be with Ring DNA. So for me to be able to coach the calls live from home is amazing, and being able to give live feedback and create a library is super essential for a new sales team. Number two, once you're hiring people and you have new reps, onboarding is crucial. So I've always been a huge advocate for Lessonly, being able to create those onboarding tools where everything is consistent. You're working with, being able to measure the onboarding success of your team.
That's fantastic. So those are great anecdotes for work. Outside of the workplace, more personally, what about movies, film? What's your favorite movie?
Oh, I've always said that I'm a huge fan of the movie Casino. I
Nice.
like it. I love it. I've seen it probably too many times for how long it is. That's many hours of my life. But I'm still like a Dirty Dancing fan. I can't get away from it. I love it. The music, everything about it.
Oh, that is so good. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Dirty Dancing. That's a great choice. Um, Last one. When you were a kid, what did you want to grow up to be?
I mean, I'd love to say something amazing like a doctor, but literally, I was obsessed with camping, canoeing, and I thought for sure I was going to grow up to be someone who just like taught people how to canoe. Like I'm talking about when I was young. I was like, I'm going to be one of those wilderness people and teaching people how to be out here. I guess it follows the theme of fitness, but yeah.
That's so good. I love it. Elena, thank you so much for sharing your story, your thoughts. This was such a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
I've had a blast. I'm looking forward to our next conversation, and I hope that you have all the success in your new role in coaching the remote team. This is great.
Thank you.
Awesome. We'll see you soon.